Welcome back to Moose on the Loose, your source of uncorrupt media. My name's David. Today we're going to be jumping into the House of Commons here, where Chrystia Freeland gets a little spicy with some personal attacks against Pierre Poilievre. And, well, he's not taking that. You know what's going to happen here. As well as some other bonehead statements from other Liberals. Buckle up.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
When the Prime Minister doubled the debt, drove inflation and interest rates to their highest levels in a generation, he said he had no choice. Every penny he spent was necessary. Along comes ArriveCan, a $54 million app we didn't need, didn't work, and could have been done for $200,000 or $300,000. Now we learn, based on the Ombudsman's audit, that 76% of the contractors did absolutely no work for the money they received. Will the Prime Minister get taxpayers back this stolen money and stop the waste that is not worth the cost?
So I have an entire video that goes over that, and I break it down with a chart and everything. It's, yeah. Christian Firth at GC Strategies.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have learned through bitter experience that when Conservatives talk about the public finances, what they're really talking about is cutting the government support Canadians depend on. What they are talking about is cutting early learning and childcare, which is supporting labour force participation at record levels in Canada, and, by the way, making life more affordable for Canadian families. They want to cut dental care, Mr. Speaker.
What does that have to do with ArriveCan
in
at
our
all?
green future.
Nothing to do with
The Honourable
ArriveCan.
Leader of the Opposition.
We want to cut waste and mismanagement that has risen to a level that is not worth the cost after 8 years of this Prime Minister. Speaking of wasteful, this Prime Minister loves to lecture Canadians on how they use energy. He says that he's just like every other Canadian when he stays with a friend at an $89,000 a week vacation. The average Canadian emits 15 tons of carbon per year. His trip emitted 100 tons of carbon in 1 week. Did he pay the full carbon tax on each ton he emitted for his luxurious vacation?
This is awesome, coming in with speaking in the eco language.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, since we're asking questions of MPs, I have a couple of questions for the Leader of the Opposition.
Of course she's not going to answer the question. This is so dumb. There needs to be a law against this.
I'd like to know how much heating the 19-room government mansion that he lives in costs. That would be interesting for Canadians to understand. And, you know, the good news for Canadians is we're helping them with the cost of heating with the carbon rebate. So I want to know, did his family cash their carbon rebate check? It's almost $1,000.
That's just disgraceful response. The government, that system has been set up for a long time. They should be criticizing their own government if they don't want the Leader of the Opposition to have a house to stay in. Let me just count the rooms in my abode here. So this little house I'm living in has 8 rooms in it. It's pretty easy if you add in a couple of kids, a couple extra bathrooms, a couple other extra bedrooms to get to 19. She's making it seem like it's some sort of Elon Musk billionaire mansion. Which is funny because Elon Musk sold all his mansions. But anyways.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I can tell the member that I pay for my own vacations and that of my family. And, Mr. Speaker, Canadians who pay for their own vacations are also paying too much for food. We have a bill, a common sense Conservative bill, C-234, that would take the carbon tax off the farmers that feed us and the consumers that desperately need to put nutrition on their table. Will the Prime Minister stop blocking the bill, pass this law so that Canadians can afford food?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
You know, Mr. Speaker, people who live in glass houses really should not throw stones.
She says stop saying that.
The Leader of the Opposition may be bragging about what he pays for, but I think Canadians should understand he doesn't pay any rent on that 19-room mansion that he lives in. In fact, he's been on the government payroll for more than 20 years, and he qualified for a full pension at 35, Mr. Speaker. And now he wants to take the rebates away from Ontario families. $1,000 a year, he wants to take that away.
That was great.
Then I have the
His champagne, there's like, that was great. I don't know. That's not a good look there, Freeland. Personal attacks. No, people don't like you, Freeland. We hate your guts.
Yesterday, the Prime Minister said that immigration levels are based on our ability to welcome and integrate newcomers. Unfortunately, that is totally false. In 2022, his public service warned him that if he increased his immigration targets, he would worsen, among other things, the housing crisis. The Prime Minister did it anyway. Now he must correct his lack of judgment. On November 1st, the Prime Minister pledged to review his immigration targets starting in 2024 based on intake capacity after consulting Cpac. Will he keep his word?
Then I have
The Honourable Minister of Housing Infrastructure.
If you're wondering, yeah, Trudeau didn't show up for work today, so it's just all these other fools.
And communities. Welcoming people and building housing at the same time. That is why we are negotiating an agreement with Cpac for $2.8 billion to build 23,000 housing units. And
with our partners in Quebec to welcome newcomers who contribute essential skills to our economy and build houses at the same time.
Let's just break that down for a second here. So as you guys know, I don't like this guy because he's an idiot, Sean Fraser. So he just said 23,000 units in Quebec for, what was it, 1.5 billion? These fools are bringing in 1.2 million people. That's 500,000 immigrants, and then the other 700,000 broken down between foreign students and foreign workers. But a lot of those people stay. That turns out to be around 3,260 people per day coming into Canada. So those 23,000 houses, that's the equivalent of 7 days of people coming into Canada. So they're bragging about, oh, we're going to build all these houses. It's like, yeah, that surplus has gone in literally a week. That's nothing to brag about. At this point, it's just like, they know what they're doing. They're just, this is crazy, man. They're just intentionally causing suffering to us.
Then I have
the Honourable Member for La Prairie. The Liberals knew that raising immigration levels would worsen the housing crisis. They did it anyway. And now, even with the consequences staring them in the face, they're not even correcting the situation. No, on the contrary, in 2024, they'll increase again to 485,000 people, and in 2025, 500,000 people. Even in the midst of a crisis, they continue to increase immigration targets against the advice of their public service and economists. When will they be responsible enough to adjust their targets to our capacity?
Then I have
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. The member opposite seems to forget that we have a unique agreement with Quebec, the Canada-Quebec agreement that transfers over $700 million annually to Quebec to manage its levels. They have the almost exclusive capacity to choose the people who go to Quebec. We will work with Quebec to ensure that it works with their capacity. But I'd like to ask a question. He seems to want to cut immigration. Where would he want to cut?
the honourable member.
Did you really ask that? Where would he want to cut? How about you close the doors for 5 years until our country recovers? Probably more like 10 years at this point. That guy's such a fool. He doesn't talk very often. He's the immigration guy, minister. He is the biggest bonehead probably on that bench right now.
From Burnaby South.
What do you get with 24 Liberal MPs in Toronto? A housing crisis. A Davenport MP that gaslights and attacks the city and the housing workers that are struggling to make sure people have a place to call home. Whether you were born here or moved here, no one should live on the streets. The city and the housing groups are just asking the Liberal government to do their fair share. So will the Liberals provide the $250 million that Toronto needs now?
It's such a hypocrite, Jagmeet. Come on, man. He's propping up the government to get his golden pension, and then he talks about people living on the streets. Captain Gucci bags here. Give me a break.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member opposite for the very important question and for pointing to the importance of the great city I have the privilege of representing, Toronto.
Toronto, just a little interlude here. What's wrong? Why did you vote for this? Like this monstrosity, the deputy prime minister of Ukraine. Oh, sir, I'm sorry, Canada. Can you please not vote for this person again, please? I get it. We didn't know. Just don't vote for her again.
Which is such an engine of economic growth for our entire country. Mr. Speaker, we are having very constructive conversations with the City of Toronto and with the Province of Ontario. We are providing $1.5 billion for Toronto in 23-24. We're there for Toronto more than any government in Canadian history.
More in Canadian history. This is just unbelievable. These Liberals are just out to lunch.
Another year means another carbon tax increase on April 1st. It was minus 50 in some places in this country where Canadians can't even afford to heat their homes. Yesterday, the finance minister lectured Canadians on her out-of-touch version of events, and then we learned that the Liberals were going to change the name of the carbon tax. Taking money out of the pockets of Canadians rebranded is still taking money out of their pockets. So instead of paying high-priced consultants to remove the carbon tax or change the carbon tax name, they should take some free advice and cancel it April 1st.
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, let me tell you what is really out of touch. What is out of touch
Please, I'm all ears, Chrystia Freeland. Tell me what's out of touch.
is for a Toronto MP like the one sitting opposite to be saying to the people of Ontario, to the hardworking families of Ontario, we are going to take away the $974 you are getting back thanks to the price on pollution. We're going to cut that money that goes directly to your family budget. Oh, and by the way, we're going to cut daycare and dental care along the way too. That's not going to help anyone in Canada.
She's such a witch. Like, you get your $900, but then you have to pay an extra $8,000 for what they've done to this country. Not to mention all the immigration stuff is separate from that. Rent used to be $1,000. That's $12,000 a year. Now it's like, what, 3 times, $36,000? Add in the extra 8, so you're paying an extra $45,000 because of these idiots? Just think about that. You'd have an extra like $40,000 in your bank account if it weren't for these idiots.
The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, I don't remember a government so indifferent to the plight of Canadians. Her advice of cutting Disney Plus is cold comfort to the woman who's putting water in her children's milk. The cost of some produce is up 94% since she got here. They can lower the cost of food, of gas, of home heating by canceling the increase instead of quadrupling the tax. They paused it for one region where their MPs revolted. Where are the rest of their silent MPs who should be speaking up for their neighbors that are asking to cancel the increase?
I don't know where they get these numbers, like 94% increase. When I go to the grocery store, everything is at least double. Like I mentioned, the green peas, it was $1 before, now it's $2.60. That's an additional 160% to the price. So there's a lot of things in the grocery store that are well over 94%.
Minister for Finance and Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to being out of touch with regular Canadians, let me tell you what was out of touch. It was having a temporary leader who charged $20 grand to move into her temporary house and then charged Canadian taxpayers more than $5,000 for bed and bath linens. That's for towels and sheets. And Mr. Speaker, what Canadians need to know is these conservatives would cut childcare, they would cut dental care, and they would cut the carbon rebate people are getting.
That's real rich. I was going to do a video on something related. Basically, was an attorney general, liberal, something, I can't remember her title. She was caught spending $146,000 on dry cleaning in a single year. How does someone spend $146,000 on dry cleaning? That's how liberals are using our money. It's amazing how many personal attacks she's doing here today.
The honourable member from Lakeland.
That Deputy Prime Minister is so out of touch. This is the truth. After 8 years, Canadians can't afford to eat, heat, or house themselves. Last year, 2 million Canadians needed help from food banks every month. That's a shocking 78% increase from just 2 years before. Food banks say 2024 will be even worse. The Conservative Common Sense Bill C-234 would take the tax off farmers to lower food prices right now, but the Liberals force senators to gut it. So why won't the Liberals axe the tax from farmers to bring down food prices for Canadians?
The honourable.
Mr. Speaker, we will take no lessons from these austerity concerns.
Did you hear that? Guy on the other side is like, you should. Here, let me just play it again.
Mr. Speaker, we will take no lessons from these austerity conservatives when it comes to supporting the most vulnerable Canadians. Since we formed government, 2.3 million Canadians have been lifted out of poverty, and the poverty rate has fallen from 14.5% when they were in government to 7.4%.
I can't quite hear what they're saying, but some funny comments coming there. I don't understand these poverty numbers. They've put so many people into poverty. People are on the brink of poverty. People with blue collar, white collar, doesn't matter what color your collar is, sleeping in their vans. Where do they get these numbers? The number of people in poverty has not gone down, it's skyrocketed.
Well, listen, the Liberals' schemes, scams, and spin jobs don't help the millions of desperate, hungry Canadians struggling just to get by every single month. This is the fact. When you tax the farmer who produces the food, the trucker who ships the food, and then the cost of heating and cooling and storing the food, Canadians can't afford the food. But these out-of-touch carbon tax crusaders, they don't care. And they're going to quadruple it on April 1st. Conservatives will axe the tax for all for good. But why won't these Liberals just pass Bill C-234, reject the Senate amendments, tax the tax from farmers, and bring down food prices today?
Because they're greedy and they want to steal our money.
The honourable minister.
Speaker, I'll tell you where Conservatives were focused just over a week ago. A who's who collection of Conservatives gathered for a pep talk from far-right U.S. commentator Tucker Carlson.
Here it is. This guy's such a fool.
Colleagues. Colleagues.
Dude, no one respects you, Greg. Nobody respects you.
Colleagues, it's important once again for us to be able to hear the questions and hear the answers. I know that yesterday, if you will recall, there was a member who had complained about the noise level, which made it difficult, especially for people who need to listen to translation.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, last week, a who's who of Conservatives gathered in Alberta for a lecture and a series with far-right commentator Tucker Carlson. And in that speech, one of them which focused and which had the Premier Danielle Smith attend, we heard attacks on francophones, homophobic jokes, and traditional best hits of MAGA politicians. Mr. Speaker, a Conservative nomination candidate in my riding went on Twitter, had lots of fun on it. Here's the question. Will his leader stand with the candidate or call him out, or is he standing with Tucker Carlson?
They keep trying to push like Poilievre to like pick a side, like he has to be with Tucker Carlson or not. MAGA best hits. What a great, that's gonna be a bumper sticker, man. You can see Pierre as he kind of caught off on the screen here.
The honourable member from Lantern Kent, Middlesex.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, Canadians who used to belong to the middle class are going hungry. The Prime Minister and his radical Environment Minister know that if it costs a farmer more to grow food, it's going to cost Canadians more to buy food. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Farmers, ranchers and producers are asking for Bill C-234 to lower their costs. So will the Liberals finally reject the amendments from Bill C-234 from the Senate, remove the carbon tax completely, and lower the price of food for all Canadians?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for Agriculture and Agri-Food.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I fully understand the importance of looking after the land, being a farmer. I fully understand.
Well, let me guess. He's going to say they spent $1.5 billion on investing in new technology, and the environment is so important as a farmer.
And taking steps to prepare the industry for the future.
That's all he says.
Mr. Speaker, that's why we invested as a government $1.5 billion to make sure our farmers and ranchers and processors are ready for the future. We are going to continue to make sure our farmers and ranchers remain on the cutting edge. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There it is. That's all he says. Every time.
The Honourable Member from Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Mr. Speaker, the 2 million Canadians who rely on food banks deserve better than that cheap deflection. 1 in 5 Ontario households who struggle to put food on their tables deserve better. They need this government to stop inflating food prices. They need the Prime Minister to stand up to his radical Environment Minister and carve out the inflationary carbon tax for our farmers, producers, and ranchers. So will the Liberals finally do the right thing? Reject the Senate amendments to Bill C-234, remove the carbon tax for farmers, and lower the price of food for Canadians.
Mr. Speaker, for far too many Canadians, the dream of home ownership is dead, and it lays squarely on this Liberal NDP government. After 8 years, mortgages have doubled, and a staggering 3 out of 4 families cannot afford a home. Canadians know that this Prime Minister is not worth the cost, a cost brought about by a truly impressive mix of arrogance and indifference to the suffering of many Canadians. Mr. Speaker, when will this government take a break from their Jamaican junkets and actually address the housing hell in Canada?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, with respect, my honourable colleague is simply trying to prey on the very real anxiety that families are feeling across this country. While at the same time, she advances a plan that will build fewer homes than we are already on track to build. We have removed the GST from home building in this country. The Conservatives want to put it back on. We are investing directly in affordable housing. The Conservatives want to cut it. And we have put a $4 billion fund on the table to reduce red tape with cities, and they've committed to doing away with that too. We'll get the homes built. They only stand in the way.
This guy is just such a loser. Prey on the vulnerability. Is that what he said? That's what he thinks going on? That they're doing a great job and the Conservatives are just trying to prey on this situation? This is deplorable, dude.
Mr. Speaker, more empty words while Canadians are spiraling out of control. It's not only home ownership that this Liberal NDP government has managed to turn from a dream into a nightmare, but it's rent as well. In the last 2 years alone, rent has increased by 22%. That's nearly $400 a month. After 8 years of their war on affordable housing and rent, this government is forcing Canadians out from the suburbs and into tent cities and parking lots. Mr. Speaker, when will this government stop the photo ops and actually fix the housing and affordability crisis hammering Canadians?
Mr. Speaker, for years, the Conservative approach to policies that will actually help people is to prey on their anxieties rather than advance ideas that will actually address them. The member is supporting her leader's plan, which is going to build fewer homes than we are already on track to build. We have removed the GST from apartments to help bring down rent. She's campaigning on a commitment to put that GST back on for a lot of middle-class apartments, which will increase the cost of living. When it comes to affordable housing, we have put programs in place to support their construction. They have promised to cut it. We are going to continue to put money on the table to build more homes. Their policies will drive up rent.
Did you hear that at the beginning? The Randy Numbnuts here. He was just like, shame, shame. Come on, man.
And we are already on track to build. We have homes and we are already on track to build. We have.
It's so dumb. The whole situation is so dumb. Like, even if the Conservatives were to gut all of their programs, but they cut the immigration down to 0 and let the situation settle, we would still be 10 times better off. But if they keep all those housing accelerators and they gut the immigration, stop it or pause it, shall we say, that's what's going to fix it. There's no way to build homes fast enough for the amount of people they're bringing in. They know this. They know what they're doing. They just, for whatever reason, there's some sort of it's got to be financial scheme that they're all going to get rich off of by screwing us. That's what they're doing. They go back and forth about student housing and stuff, but that's where we're going to end this one. If you guys are looking for something a little bit different, I have a hiking channel with some cool adventures. I'll link up right here, or some more Trudeau madness here. Be sure to subscribe with notifications turned on, and I'll see you guys on the next one.